I'm here with one of my old buddies, Josh Alton, comedian turned trivia host, and also still sometimes a comedian. What's up, Josh Alton, all the way from Iowa?
Hey, how's it going, Rhino?
Good to see you, man. We have known each other for probably about 20, close to 20 years, don't you think?
Yeah, I think that is about right. That's hard to believe.
Yeah, my wife and I have been together for 20 years this fall. I think I met you maybe a year after that when I started doing stand up in like '06, beginning of '07. So we're coming up on 20 years, and you are the second most important relationship after the one with my wife. So this is
Oh,
perfect that I have you on the show today.
nice. Yeah. Well, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So tell me a little bit about hosting trivia and how you got into that and some of your favorite things about doing it.
Okay. Well, hosting trivia, I now do it all week long. It's like my main gig, and I love it. It's wonderful. Um, I love coming up with new ideas for different rounds. I love when people give me requests and for like a certain round, and I randomly show up with it one week, and they're all excited about it. I got into it because of you.
Is that right?
Yeah, 100% because of you. I had no interest. I was touring a lot, doing tons of stand up on the road.
Yeah.
And you were out in LA starting your trivia empire out there.
Yeah.
And you were determined to get somebody else in like another location of the country to do a trivia night. And you asked me a couple times about it, and I think mostly out of laziness I was just kind of like, I don't
Yeah.
know. But then I finally, I know what happened. I had that 20-year reunion for my high school.
Now it's all coming back to me. Yep.
And coming back to me too. And so we had no entertainment planned. And then, like, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks before this event came up, they got a hold of me and said, hey, we don't really have anything planned for entertainment. We don't think a lot of people are coming. How about if you do like a stand-up show? Do you have any other kind of entertainment you could provide? And so then I asked you about doing a 90s trivia night. That's what it was.
That's right. Yep.
96.
Yeah. Yeah. I should mention to anyone watching or listening, you are 45 years older than me, right, Josh?
Yes.
Yeah. I just had my 20th reunion in October, like 3 months, 4 months ago. So
Right on.
crazy. Yeah. And what's funny is when I showed up to my 20-year reunion, they go, "Where's the trivia? What are you doing?" And I'm like, "No, this is like my night off. I don't
Yeah.
have to do that." They're like, "I thought the only reason you were here was to do trivia." I was like, "Oh, man."
So then I did the stand-up show, but then that night at our thing, we had like almost 100 people show up. We had a
Yeah.
huge turnout. They thought we'd only have like 25, 30 people. And so we abandoned the trivia for that night because it was so crazy and people just wanted to talk.
Yeah.
But then I had it all put together and I wanted to try it. Like I had it
Yeah.
all ready to go. I did all the prep work. And so one of my friends that I graduated with has an Irish pub in West Des Moines. And him and his wife let me do my first trivia night there. And I actually still do stuff there every Wednesday.
Isn't that
Eight,
crazy? And now we're what? At least 5 years, 5 years in?
eight. I think it's eight now.
8 years. Holy
Yeah.
smokes. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I always tell people that's when someone is trying to get started out, and there's probably someone listening or watching this right now that's like looking for tips. The number one place you can go to get your first location is those places that your buddies own or the manager at or the head bartender at. When you have an in at a place, you already have a leg up, just like any job. But you know the place, you're familiar with it. Maybe it's in your hometown. Maybe you went to high school with those people, and you're sort of welcomed into the idea of trying something like that, rather than just kind of cold calling places or just wandering
Yeah.
into a bar and going, "Could I do a thing here?"
Yeah.
Although I will say when I moved to Tennessee from California, that was my MO because I didn't know anybody here.
Oh,
So I would
sure.
just wander into places that looked like were pretty like a cool looking place, unique to me. And I'd go, "Oh, this could be a good place for trivia." And another thing that I do still to this day, and I sort of get a rush out of it, I will just go into a place and go, "Hey, I'm going to do this thing. I got all the stuff in my trunk. I'm just going to do it right now." And they're like, "Wait, what? Huh?" Like usually they're like bewildered at the idea of it. But after you kind of explain it to them and you go, "I'm just going to do it for like a half hour. If anybody pays attention, you don't have to pay me anything." They're usually, especially in a small town where I live, they're kind of like susceptible to it. Like, "Okay, we'll see how it goes." And then someone will come back to that bar the next day and go, "Hey, I heard you guys did this thing." And if an owner hears one person go, I heard you did a thing, they're like, let's try that thing again. I've
Yeah.
noticed that quite a bit. So you could do it both ways, but I do agree with what you said. When you have somewhere that feels like a home base to kind of kick it off, and that goes well, then word of mouth spreads, and now you're going to that guy's other restaurant or his cousin's bar in the next town over or whatever. So how did you grow the business from there? And did you even think about it as a business when you did that first one, where you're like, this is my new business, or where you're like, I'll just do this and kind of see what happens?
Yeah, it was more like, let's do this and see what happens. Let me see if I even like doing it. um, and I was real low pressure with them. I said, hey, let's just do this first one, see what happens. And thank goodness the first one went really well. It was a lot of fun. People were receptive to it. Their locals that would come into the bar, their regulars, I guess, seemed to enjoy it as well. And so we started off right away with a once a month type thing, which quickly escalated into twice a month. And then I would say after about a year or so, we were up to every week.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
so, and that's a place you still do events at. And how many more venues do you think you have? You said you're doing it pretty much every night of the week somewhere or weeknights?
Well, yeah, I'm doing I have every Tuesday night, every Wednesday night, every Thursday night, and I do a Sunday brunch.
Gotcha.
And then
Do you,
that,
with that caseload or that show load, do you ever go like, oh, this is too much? Or are you like, I could do some more? Or is it about right in terms of what you have time for?
right now it feels about right. I did have something going every other Friday, and that
Yeah.
one was good 30 to 40 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
I finally just let that one go. It was one of my older venues, and I felt really bad. Nothing, I mean, I had nothing bad going on with the owner or the venue or anything like that. I had great crowds showing up, but it was getting tough to walk out the door every Friday night, make that drive, come
Yeah.
home incredibly late.
Yeah.
I've got a family, so I gotta carve out some time and hang out with the family too. So
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes I think it's such a fun thing to do. And comedy's the same way because you're typically not doing comedy before 7 p.m. in most cases. But like as a comedian, as a trivia host, whatever you want to be, even like a magician or like a juggler or something. I mean, I guess you're doing maybe some more daytime shows as a magician or juggler, but you mostly are working at night and you have the day free to, you have on your screen right now, trophy husband. You're sort of that stay-at-home dad king. You got that life going on for a long time now.
yeah,
Your wife, Kim, is a nurse. Is she a nurse, a doctor?
yep. She's a nurse practitioner.
Nurse
She's in
practitioner. That's right. And
health.
so you've sort of been that stay-at-home, like you joke about trophy dad. I remember you used to have the trophy husband T-shirts after comedy shows that were big sellers because there were other trophy husbands out there that were like, yes, I too fill that role.
Yes, yeah. That was right when that was like a new thing too.
Sure,
For
the idea of saying
it's
that, yeah,
always been some dads that stayed at home, but I think it became a little bit more of a normal thing
yeah.
right around the time I started doing it. Um, and so that trophy husband shirt was a big hit right away.
I just read an article about how millennial dads, because would you be considered a millennial? Are you Gen X?
I'm Jen.
You're Gen X. So right
Yeah,
between us, like I'm one of the oldest
close,
millennials,
very
I
close.
think. Yeah, I think I'm one of the oldest millennials. I was almost Gen X, and you're towards the end of Gen X. But I just read this article that said millennial dads, and I'm guessing Gen X dads too, are way more hands-on with kids than dads of the 60s, for example. It was
Oh, yeah.
like some kind of survey. It was like in 1965, 58% of dads had not never changed a diaper, and now it's like less than 3% in
Wow.
modern times. Like 97% of dads are changing diapers, so it's jumped quite a bit. And I started doing this full time a little over 7 years ago when my son Tommy was born in 2017. And I remember making a conscious effort to go, oh, if I this is my full-time job, but I don't have to go to a 9 to 5 anymore. In California working on a TV show. I'm like, if I don't have to do that, then
Yeah.
I can spend all this time and watch these kids grow up. Because my daughter was 3 at that time, and I felt like I had missed everything because I had only seen her on the weekends. I felt like I was like a separated dad or something
Oh man, it's
because I was
hard.
so I was so busy. And so once I made that decision, it was just it changed my life in so many great ways because I was around for all these things. I saw them every day for hours a day instead of just brief moments before they're, going to sleep or whatever. And now it works out great because when I'm leaving to go out, they're winding down after dinner, getting
Yeah.
pajamas on, all that stuff, getting ready to go to sleep to go to school the next day. So I don't feel like I miss anything unless I have like a big show, like a corporate show, and it's during a basketball game, and I have to miss the basketball game or something to go to the corporate show. But
Right.
usually that's to make some amount of money that makes me feel like, okay, that's just one game, and we can
Yep.
use this chunk of money for lots more equipment for that sport for all the years to come or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think if you work at night and you have a job that is sort of like that nightlife entertainment, it is very handy because you have the days free and especially specifically with trivia nights, most bars obviously don't want to do trivia on the weekends, minus like a brunch scenario like you had, or I have a thing at a bar where we do Sunday fun day, like every other Sunday. It's basically just trivia and bingo, but sort of like more of a variety show, kind of casual, as opposed to just a trivia night. But most of these bars are trying to get people to come in on nights where they don't have a lot of people, like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. And so that works out great too for our weekends to be open when we do this kind of thing.
Yes, I love it, man. I wouldn't trade it for anything. And
Yeah. Yeah.
up
Yeah.
on the road for a long time, and I love doing that. I'm glad I did it while I did it because I did it for a little while Emma was very young, and it just got so painful to leave on the road for several days, especially at
Yeah.
the level of things I'm doing. I mean, I'm realistic about it. I wasn't going on like giant theaters and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
When you're heading off to do some one nighters or whatever, it's a little different.
Sure. Most
Uh,
definitely. Tell me a little bit about specifically hosting trivia in Iowa. When I met you, we did stand-up comedy in Chicago in the mid 2000s, and then you moved to Iowa, I want to say around 2010. Does that sound right?
yeah, no, 2013.
13. Got it. And you live close to what's the biggest city? Des Moines?
Yeah, I live in Des Moines.
Oh, you live in Des Moines. That's right. Okay, so tell me a little bit. Does anything jump out at you with audiences, with crowds, with players there? I mean, I assume you've only really ever hosted trivia in that region because you didn't host trivia in Chicago. But does anything stand out about Iowa crowds or venues or anything like that?
The only thing I could think of on this one is, I tend to get really good audiences here. The one thing I will say is, and I don't know if this would be any different in Chicago necessarily. This is kind of a Midwestern thing, but in the wintertime, I notice like audiences, crowds are much bigger.
Yeah,
And when it gets nice out in the summertime, crowds get significantly smaller. There's
sure.
a short window
Yeah,
around to do fun things that are summer related. That once it finally gets hot out,
yeah,
early July or late June, whatever, until like maybe the end of August until school gets going again,
yeah.
it's kind of a dead uh, thing. So, like the venue that I was talking about, my Wednesday nights, we actually take a couple of months off
Oh,
in
gotcha.
time because
Yeah, I have a dog park that I do in Johnson City, Tennessee, and we're
oh yeah.
off right now. We're pretty much off December till March, and so we're off for 4 months. But people still go there; it's still open, and they have like a heated, tented kind of a thing. But they don't need the crowd. They don't need that trivia crowd really because they're not going to have it.
Now I do have one venue, a brewery that I do, and they have a beer garden. And so it's kind of the opposite with that. If they have an outside space to hang out in, we get big crowds for that over the summer.
I agree. And same thing with that dog park. It is like a beer garden scenario, and it can be, we'll have 60, 70 players there on a regular Wednesday trivia night, just with their dogs running around. It's actually very cool. Shout out to Off Leash Social in Johnson City, Tennessee. You can sign up for like a membership and bring your dog in there. And the dog just runs around, plays with other dogs, and it's a
Oh, wow.
fun social thing for the dogs. But they have an awesome bar with cocktails and like over 30 different beers in cans and bottles. Like they have THC drinks, everything you'd ever want at a bar. It's actually one of the most packed varieties of bars anywhere in the Tri Cities where I live. Is this dog park off leash social? So it's pretty sweet.
Quick
Uh,
story. When I
yeah,
lived in Chicago, I never had a dog there. Our place was a little small, and I was always on the road doing stand up, so it was a little tough to own a dog. But several times I went to the dog park and just hung out with dogs
Yeah.
without bringing my own dog.
Yeah.
Like I just went in and started playing with people's dogs.
And this is the hub for that. I mean, I'll just stop there. I'll be like, I want to go see some dogs, and I'll stop in there. He'll be like, "You dropping off a flyer or something?" I'm like, "Nah, I just really wanted to see these dogs and have
Yep.
this one beer that you have on, in cans that I can't find anywhere else." So they do a really good job with that. But that's cool. I love that for players in Iowa. And do you have any topics that jump out? Like, are they really into sports over entertainment, or are they kind of into everything there?
I think a little bit of everything.
Sure,
Uh, yeah, I mean, people definitely like sports stuff here, but and I'm kind of like you. I stick to a lot of pop culture stuff.
sure.
But people like movies. I would say TV has got to be the least popular. Do you notice
Interesting.
out of the three major TV?
I wouldn't say I've noticed that, but it does make sense with trends of what everyone watches different stuff these days. If and some people don't even watch TV at all, they're watching TikTok. You know what I mean? They're not really watching programming on a television, or they're watching YouTube on their smart TV. Like a lot of
Yeah,
kids do. A lot of kids are doing that, and I think a lot of kids nowadays will not know like what a sitcom is because there's no reason for them to even watch that. You know what I mean? My kids do because they love all those like Disney Channel sitcoms and like Fuller House and stuff like that.
oh yeah,
They love those cheesy sitcoms. But I love. It's funny. I'll tell my daughter like, "Oh, this is based on a show called Full House." She's like, "Oh yeah, I watched it. It was terrible." And I'm like, "It's the same exact thing, but whatever."
oh,
Uh,
mine likes it. My youngest one likes it. She likes Fuller House, but she also loves Full House.
yeah, I don't think she's given it a chance, but she's watched Fuller House like twice all the way through. She loves Good Luck Charlie. Do your kids ever watch
Oh
that?
yeah,
Good Luck Charlie was like a legitimately pretty funny, well written, great character
it's good.
for
It's
one of
not.
those Disney cheesy sitcoms. That's one
Yeah.
of my favorites of those, I think. Uh, do you find like are people requesting certain topics at your Iowa crowds? Are they like, hey, can you do more? Like, do they want specific stuff there? Are they like, can you do a round on Lord of the Rings? Or can you do a round on uh Dancing with the Stars? Like very specific franchises or anything like that, or more broad stuff?
I do get that sometimes.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's an Iowa thing necessarily, but
Yeah.
a while back I did ask you for a Lord of the Rings
Oh
round,
yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's what I was thinking about it.
and Harry Potter also gets requested a lot, and those are probably the toughest ones for me to do. That's why
Yeah.
I asked for help on that. It gets tough because A, there's a lot of movies, and I haven't seen them, most of them.
Yeah.
And B, there's also books with
Yeah.
discrepancies and stuff. And I get
Yeah,
so
that's a good point. Yeah.
people will jump down your throat.
Yeah. The nerdier the topic, the more obscene they can get if like a
Yeah,
detail's wrong. Yeah, for sure. And I'm like, I always think like, oh man, I thought I liked Harry Potter. I saw all the movies and read the books, and people are like, you don't know anything, like they get so mad. Um, I
I,
have friends. I shout out to my friend Matt in North Carolina. He just did not too long ago, like the show Bridgerton, which I know nothing about
oh
except it's like
wow,
a
yeah,
fancy Victorian show, maybe. And he was like, "Oh yeah, we had this huge crowd," and he's like in a mountain town in North Carolina, I think. And I'm like, are they really going to get like, and the whole night was Bridgerton. Like they advertised it, like, come play Bridgerton trivia. And I've seen those on Instagram and things like certain bars in certain areas will do those. But I think if I tried doing something like that, it would tank so bad here. It has to be like somewhat specific. I mean, it can be specific, but it has to be like Disney or Marvel
yeah.
or The Office or something, Game of Thrones even. But like if something like Bridgerton, I'm like, I don't think enough people watch that around here, or I'm just dense and I don't realize that there are probably lots of fans of that show here, but you have to really find ways to target them if you're
Yeah.
doing like an event where it's based on tickets or something, and you got to make sure a certain amount of people come out. You got to really join those Tri-Cities, Tennessee, Bridgerton fan groups and stuff like that, which are few and far between. But yeah, I've noticed that down here for sure. It can be a little bit harder. Also, at some of my regular locations where we do 5 different topics every week, every once in a while I'll go, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing all Disney next week," and everyone will like boo, like at certain
Yeah.
places, and I'm
Oh
like,
yeah, I've had that too.
"Yeah," I'm like, "Really?" And they're like, "No, keep it. We like It's just we want it to be a variety of stuff that everybody knows rather than just like, oh, those young kids will kill us in that, you know? And I'm like, oh, I kind of get that too. So in California, it was like if I said Disney, maybe it's because Disneyland's right there, but like
Yeah.
people would go nuts and it would be like we'd have 200 people show up to the Disney trivia night.
Oh, wow.
And it would be like a sort of a hassle to run it, you know? But here it seems like you gotta kind of make it more of a variety, which is fun. I like hosting more of a variety myself.
Yeah.
What is maybe something like, do you ever had any strange interactions with trivia players? Have you ever had like, I don't know, maybe somebody hits on you or you like
Well, that happens nightly.
yeah. Never at home.
Doesn't really matter who's there.
Yeah, yeah. Any stories like that? Hosting trivia, like in the world of comedy, you get some drunks after a show who would say
Oh,
something
yeah.
weird or like you just meet a strange, I don't want to call them fans, but just some weirdo that has some strange jokes to give you, after a comedy
Definitely
show.
got a few different strange people. I had one guy that just came to one trivia night, and he ended up, they had gift cards for the top two teams, and he ended up getting third. He was real close to being the second place winner, but in that confidence round, he got one of them wrong. It was a scientific question with a very clear-cut answer, and he was arguing his answer. That's not that unusual, but he got so upset. I've never seen a guy get this upset before.
Yeah.
And he was like, this is terrible. He's like, you're taking money out of my pocket. You're taking food out of my mouth. I could have gotten that gift. And he was like, I don't, and I was like,
Do you remember the value of the gift card?
Right here, like the first 7 answers are all the same thing I said. Like,
Wow. Do you remember the value of the gift card he was so upset about?
yeah, it was $20. They do 25 and 20.
Oh my gosh.
20
Yeah.
bucks. And I mean, I ruined that guy's life. And I had the right answer. Like, it's not even...
Yeah. Sure. It could have been a $5 gift card and he would have been like, this is, the same response. It's just the idea sometimes of winning or not winning. I think because I have experience as a comedian doing crowd work and sort of shutting people down sometimes, I think I don't even really ever have to do that very much anymore. People don't really argue. I think they can tell. I make it very clear, like, I'm not a trivia guy. I'm hosting this thing that I like to do, and I like that you're having fun with it, but I don't care at all about something like a scientific fact. You know what I mean? It doesn't affect me in any way. Yeah. And if somebody goes, that was wrong, I'll go, cool, I'll give you the points. And then they'll go, well, you better change it for like your records. And I'm like, I'm never going to ask this question again. Like I have to I'm going to have a brand new batch next week, week after that. And like, that guy's going to come back week after week, or he'll get so upset about that one question he doesn't come back. I don't really want him there anyway. So like, it's very interesting because I think sometimes people, they think the pride in it is like, if you're right or wrong, like, and if I prove the host wrong, then like he'll feel hit, and like I couldn't really care less. And I think I have a tone in my voice when someone does kind of try and step up. I'm not mean about it, but I'm like, I let them know that I'm the one at the microphone and I'm running the show, kind of like I would if somebody was heckling on stage. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it kind of shuts it down. Also, trivia players are pretty timid folks, I think, for the most part. They're like teachers that are out on a Tuesday. They're not like looking to brawl. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And so
this guy was the exception, I think.
Yeah. And there have been. I think somebody pulled a gun one time. One of mine in California, I think the guy just lifted his shirt and showed me that he had a gun. He didn't pull it. And then somebody got
whoa, buddy.
In that parking lot weeks later. Somebody got shot in that parking lot weeks later in like a car robbery. And I was like, I think I'm done with that place. I don't think I'm going to do trivia at that cocktail lounge that you could still smoke in California somehow. But it's it can be, those are very few and far between. And especially in Tennessee now, it's like, I don't know, the people here everybody here is very talkative. I always tell people, if you're an introvert, do not move to Tennessee or the South, probably in general. Don't really move down here. Because like, if you go to the grocery store and you have milk, they're like, oh, buying some milk, huh? And then that turns into like a 5-minute conversation about milk or whatever. And so like, if you don't like that small talk, chit chat, going anywhere, post office or whatever, I know everybody everywhere I go because I'm a talkative guy. And I thrive on that. I'm like, I feel like I lived a day when I talk to like 5 or 6 people in that way. And when I don't do it for a couple days, like this weekend, we've had a lot of snow and I haven't gone out a lot. And I'm like, kind of like fiending to go out tonight just to like have that social interaction. I think it's great, but I do tell people like, if you don't like that, don't go out in the South.
My mom would talk to people like that when we went to New York together, like in the
Oh
subway.
yeah.
Oh, where are you guys heading
Yeah.
to? We're going over to Yankee Stadium. We're going to go to a game. Like, oh, mom, nope.
That's
Don't.
hilarious. Oh my God, I love it.
I have another guy that I wanted to tell you about real quick. He's a
Yeah,
regular that comes to my trivia night on
yeah,
Tuesday, and he sits. I sit at the bar, like right at the corner,
yeah,
and literally sits in the seat closest to me. He's just like a few feet from me.
yeah.
And this guy is actually a tenured professor at the local university.
Oh, this is perfect.
I have no idea what type of, he's the weirdest guy ever met.
Ah,
And he usually plays by himself. Once in a while, he has a couple of people come with him. And he sits there and grumbles about every question so that I
sure.
can, every question, and be like,
Oh yeah.
that's a terrible question. Why would you ask
Oh,
that?
if I
Oh, why would
yeah,
you?
if
He
I ask,
grumbles at everything. And yet he comes, I'm like, he must like it though, because he comes back like almost every week.
there's a guy that's just like that. And any question past 1985, he's like, "What's with all this? What's with all this newfangled trivia? Like, what am I supposed? How am I supposed to know what like a Game Boy is?" I'm like, that came out 35 years ago. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's like not a new thing.
Yeah.
But if it's like Led Zeppelin, he's like, yeah, like all right, like let's do a whole night of this or anything academic. I've noticed some older generations, like I'll say boomers, anything academic, they love it
Yeah.
because they remember the stuff that matters, and I feel like our generations remember the stuff that doesn't really matter. So
Yeah.
like,
Right. You're
like
probably
the like these movies and video games and things like that. But yeah, that there's a guy who complains so much. I've gone like, hey Leon, why do you show up like on the mic in front of a bar of like 80 people? Why are you here, Leon? And he goes,
right.
something to do. He'll like he'll like argue with me in public.
Yeah.
I've know that he doesn't like most of it, but he also likes enough of it to keep coming back. So it's like one of those people that at first I'm like, this guy's a pest, and then as time goes on, I'm like, oh, he's sort of a staple of the whole thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, all right, let's close it up here with this chat. How about a nugget of information that you've learned? Could be a trivia tidbit, could be something with operating trivia nights, could be just something about Iowa. It could be about anything at all. I'll kick it off with this. I just learned that if you're doing a PowerPoint presentation and you have the PowerPoint up and you want to go to the 25th slide in the PowerPoint, at any time you can type 25 enter on your computer and it'll go right to the slide. So
Whoa.
if you know the slide and you have 100 slides and you go on 67, I got to show that thing, type 67 on your keyboard, enter, and it'll automatically switch that slide. My mind was blown when I learned
Wow.
this the other day. Like I've been using PowerPoint for 30 years as like, a student, as an adult, as a trivia host for sure. And I never really need to do that. But once I learned that, I'm like, man, that's a really good tip. And I bet there's a lot of people watching or listening right now that didn't know that. So there you go. There's my nugget. You got anything fun?
Man, I had no idea about that, and I use PowerPoint all the time. So now I'm going to be using that. That's
Perfect.
Thank you for that. Okay, so we have a ton of deer here in Iowa,
Yeah.
and in fact, I live in Des Moines, and I've got my backyard is maybe a tenth of an acre. It's tiny. I mean, it is tiny. It is a little sliver triangle. I've got 4 deer in my backyard right now.
As we speak, there's 4 just hanging out.
They're just hanging out. They're laying on my little hill, clearing out my bird feeder, that kind of stuff.
Would you go as far to say that they should change the name of the city to Des Moines?
Ooh, maybe. I like that. Now, okay, so I thought Iowa had a ton of deer, and I looked it up, and we're actually one of the lowest overall deer populations in the United States.
That's wild. Maybe you just have a good scent that deer pick up, and they're like, "We're going over the Alton's house every
Yeah,
day."
but they're everywhere, man. People run over on the road and stuff constantly.
Wow.
I mean,
Deer in
people
Iowa.
hunt deer here, probably like Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
So what state do you think has the largest overall deer population?
Ooh, that's a good question. I do know that this has nothing to do with anything, but pumpkins, number one is Illinois. Illinois
Ooh,
is the
I
number
didn't know.
one pumpkin growing state in the country. I remember reading
Okay.
that this past October. So let's see, deer. I want to say one of those northern Midwest states like Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, but I don't know for sure. I'm going to guess Michigan
Okay. I got that answer a lot. I also got Wisconsin a lot. People
yeah,
around here wrote Iowa because they just think we have
a lot.
it's Texas.
Really? I guess it's a huge
And
state. Yeah.
by a long ways, Texas.
Interesting. Just
Yeah,
deer everywhere in Texas.
apparently. And it's a vast huge,
Yeah.
but yeah, I didn't know they had
I
I didn't
always think I always
associate
think of deer
that.
and forests, and I always think of
Yeah.
like this anything in the south, like way down there, like desert. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But I'm sure they obviously have forests there. That's interesting. Deer in Texas. Now we know forever. Got to watch our
Yeah.
driving in Texas and in Josh's backyard in Des Moines, Iowa. Josh, thank you so much for chatting with me today and being on the show. And anything you want to plug or promote before you take off?
The website is joshaltoncomedy.com. You can look me up on Facebook under Trophy Husband Trivia. If you live in central Iowa, come out on Tuesdays. I'm at Wahlburgers in Ames.
Yeah.
Wednesday, Sully's Irish Pub in West Des Moines. That's where I've been for 8 years. Thursdays, you can catch me at Exile Brewing downtown. And every Sunday, I run the bingo brunch at Smash Park. So
Very
come
good.
play some regular bingo on Sundays.
There it is. And is it drag bingo? Are you dressing up for this thing or no?
It is, I mean, I could do that sometime, I guess.
Depends on how many tips you want to get, Josh. How big is
It's
your tip jar?
it's regular, just wear a hoodie bingo.
Wear a hoodie.
But I might
I
shock
like
them
that.
Sundays. I
Wear a
might.
hoodie bingo. You
Yeah.
should trademark that. That's pretty awesome. Josh, thanks so much, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Take care, Rhino.
All right.